Okay, hi everyone. A request was brought in around questions 5 and 6 from chapters 1.1. Wasn't able to solve it through email, so I decided to make a video. Hope this helps. So without further ado, this is how the textbook question reads. Number 5. Number 5. As a tropical storm intensifies and reaches hurricane status, it takes on a circular shape that expands outward from the eye of the storm. In other words, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Think about it as a circle, right? It starts off small, and then the eye of the storm, which is right in the center, right? And then this hurricane is getting stronger and stronger. So it is getting larger and larger until, of course, it becomes hurricane status. Long story short, the R used to be 0, now it's a 1, now it became a 2, radius became a 3, radius became a 4, radius became a 5, guess so on and so forth. You get the point. It's the it's the area of a circle. Anyways, the question asks you to graph the function a of r for the interval where radius belongs to 0 all the way to 10, including 0 and 10. So radius belongs to square bracket 0, comma 10, square bracket. Well, okay. It asks to graph again. I'm not going to be too exact because that's not the whole point of this exercise. Anyways, you might be wondering, well, how the heck do I graph that? That's question 1. Well, don't think too hard about it. If I wrote this as f of x equals pi x squared, does that sort of look familiar? I hope it does, but even if it doesn't, I want you to use your head on this. I want you to sort of dive into this and unpackage it on your own. What do you notice about this particular equation? Is it an exponential? Is it square root? Is it reciprocal? Or is it a polynomial? In fact, specifically, it's a power function. And that is of degree 2. So automatically, number 1, being a power function, 2, being a degree of 2, that should automatically tell you that the shape of this parabola, shape of this equation should be a parabola, right? If I gave you the, now you might be wondering, well, what the heck is pi? Remember, pi is not a variable. It's actually just 3.141 blah, 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 blah. It's just a really long constant. Either way, you can think of pi as the leading coefficient. It's a constant. It's just a number. Just as high, I could have had f of x equals 2x squared. It could have 10x squared. In my head, pi is no different than any other leading coefficient. It's just a number. Mathematically speaking, you could think of pi as a vertical stretch. In any case, the pi is not something that you need to focus on. You don't need to get tripped up over. It's just a number. I might as well have, or the textbook might as well have given you this as the equation of the area of hurricane. Okay, so again, don't get tripped up. It's just a number. Next, yes, the x-axis or the curve, a parabola, goes from negative infinity to positive infinity, but the question specifically gives you the interval of 0 to 10. In other words, I do not care about anything on this side of the curve. What I do care about is everything on, oh geez, sorry. Everything on this side of the curve all the way up to an R, or the independent variable of 0 all the way to, let's pretend that's a 10. So bam, 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 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's a terrible, terrible parabola, but I just want to get the point across. The question asks you simply to graph that portion. So there it is. I graphed it, and I know it's a parabola. Again, I am not interested in accuracy right now. I just want to sort of visualize it. I want to draw it so that I can talk about it. Let's keep going. Part B, state the domain and range of this particular scenario. Okay, well, the domain would be x belongs to real number such that it has to be between 0 and 10. Now, again, depending on the textbook, it could be written as this, Some textbooks might do this. Again, I feel like our class is more familiar with the first version, so let's stick with that. Okay, moving on to the range. I see that this radius is always going to give a positive area. That makes sense. It doesn't make sense for a hurricane to have a negative area. So here it is. The area is going to be from 0 to, I have to figure that out. What is f of 10? Sorry. What is the area when the radius is a 10? So that would be pi times 10 squared. That's basically pi times 100. I'm just going to approximate it. It would be 314.1 blah, 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 blah. Okay, so let me just round it for now. The y value, in other words, the area, has to be between 0 and 114 kilometers, because that's what the textbook says, radius in kilometers. Okay, part C, describe the similarities and differences between the graph of a of r and the graph of y equals x squared. Oh, well, I sort of started off with that in this question, right? The graph that we have here, r squared, is basically the same as a power function with a degree of 2, right? If we were simply talking about in the world of mathematics, it's basically a parabola that goes like this. But because there is context, the x value is actually radius, the y value is actually the area. If I were to do the same thing, I'm only interested in this portion, and I don't care about the left side. That's it. That's your A, B, and C. Hope that clears things up. I'm going to move on to number 6 because that was also requested. I don't want to waste your time by typing it up, so I'm just going to read it. Okay. Number 6 says the circumference, C, in kilometers of the same tropical storm is modeled by the function circumference based on the radius is equal to 2 times pi times r. Okay. Exact same thing. Graph it for the interval between 0 to 10, state the domain and range, and describe similarities and differences between that and y equals x. Well, again, I may not know what this might be at first glance, but you have to be comfortable with unpackaging it on your own. Notice that the variable in this case is r. You can pretend, if it helps your eyes or helps your head, you can mimic this saying 2 is a number, pi again is another constant, which means 2 times pi is my leading coefficient. And the r is my independent variable. It's my x-axis, right? If you want me to write it in a different way, the question might as well have given you an equation with 6.28 r as your equation. They mean the same thing. In other words, 2 times pi is your leading coefficient. And there's your r as your x-axis. Okay, r as your variable, sorry. So knowing that now, knowing that this is a degree of 1, I automatically know that this is going to be a linear curve, a linear graph. Okay, because y equals mx plus b. How is it? Well, I don't see any b value. That means it goes to the origin, and then it has a very large slope. So it's going to look something, maybe something like that. Okay, so that would be, ooh, that's a terrible graph. Let me fix that. Okay, it's going to look something like this. And then from there, again, the interval said it is going to be, x is going to belong to, sorry, r. R is going to belong to an interval between 0 and 10. So I actually don't care about this portion. I am only interested in 0 all the way to 10. So it'll be something like that. Okay. Again, a rough graph that's accurate enough for you to have a conversation about. Okay. Part B, state the domain and range. Pretty easy. For domain, same as before, x belongs to any real number such that x must be between, oh geez, 0 and 10. And for the range, well, y belongs to real numbers. Again, it's a solid line, it's not dots. And the y value goes from 0 all the way to some value I do not know yet. I'm going to have to calculate that. What is the circumference when the radius is 10? Well, that's going to be 2 times pi times radius, which is 6.28 times 10. The circumference is approximately 62.8 kilometers. So it's going to be about 62.8 kilometers. Okay, that's how high this goes. This is going to be 62.8 when the radius is 10 kilometers. Okay. Describe the similarities and differences between graphs of C of R and the graph of Y equals X. I think I sort of talked about that already. C of R is essentially a constant number multiplied with the variable. It's the same as Y equals MX because there is no plus B here. It's like plus 0. So there is no plus 0 here. Okay, they're one and the same. R is my variable and 2 times pi is my slope in this case. Hope that helps. If you have any questions, please, just like before, email me. For everyone else who might need a reminder, remember, you were supposed to do chapter 1.1 and 1.2. When we come back on Monday, we're going to cover 1.3, and this all together is going to be the topics that's found in your mini test. Study hard. Thank you for the question. Keep up the good work, and we'll see you in class.